Welcome back to Dr. Taz presents the cost of telling what you survived. There is a part of storytelling that most writers are not prepared for. It's not the writing, honey. It's the response. Because you're telling your truth can feel like betrayal, especially when your story includes people, families, and communities that were built on silence. Today, we're talking about what happens when your truth disrupts others, what others have worked at keeping unspoken or silent. Felicia, this is where storytelling, as they would say, kind of the rubber meets the road. This is where it becomes more personal, and sometimes it's a cultural thing. So when writers begin to tell the truth about what they've survived, it's about me, guys, what I've survived, why does it often feel like they're betraying someone, even when they're only telling their story?
I think that when it comes to writing your truth, um, you sometimes may feel a little betrayed by that because, first of all, we have been taught, as we all know, do not tell what goes on behind closed doors in our household. Nobody needs to know our business.
Yep.
That's our business. That's private. You shouldn't put that out. Even if it's that it may not have happened to them, but it happened to you, but still they don't even want you to tell your business because it's connected to their household, to their family, to their public image. And so they don't want that smeared in any type of way. And so when they do that, it's a way of them trying to protect their image and their privacy. And I guess they think maybe protecting you, but what it does is it creates pressure. You could say for the person that has that secret that you're asking to carry that pain or traumatic experience in silence. So when somebody tells their story, it tends to make that person feel like they've betrayed someone else, and so you feel that way, but you don't have any place to go to talk about how that feeling of betrayal and keeping that silence at the same time forms this feeling of self-betrayal for you, because I've had to be quiet for so long. I can't tell you how that felt, and I also can't tell, you know, what it is that it did to me, what it made me think or feel. But if I do decide to do so, oh my God, I've done a terrible thing. So it just all goes back around to keeping our business in house. Supposedly is the proper protocol.
Well, there's always protocol, and then there's the unwritten protocol. Some people
Exactly.
say that big P, and then there's that little P. And
Exactly.
unfortunately, it's that little P sometimes, guys, that's really running the show. So you're right. I've been victimized, but the little P says that I got to keep all this in house. So it's almost like I'm being constantly victimized by me not being able to share my truth or even get assistance for my truth, because there are people who
Exactly.
still are not able to get help because that little piece says what happens in this house stays in this house.
Right. Right.
I can't even get help for what's going on. So I guess my question then becomes, how do you help writers understand the difference between necessary truth telling and oversharing before they are ready? Because I think I need to know the difference before I even begin this process.
Well, let me also add before I answer that telling the truth, it's a lot like I would love for them to look at it like it's almost like you're going to wash the laundry that's dirty. And so when you're taking that laundry out, you're digging in pockets to see what's in the pants pocket or the shirt pocket. And so in getting ready to do this, you're digging around inside the pockets. And so you need to be prepared for the fact that if I stick my hand off in here, I'll open this up, I might pull out something. And so, are you ready to check that shirt pocket or check those pants pockets and pull out what's in there? And when you do so, are you ready to share it? Are you ready to name it? Telling your story can sometimes give people, well, it does give people and strangers access into your heart and your mind. Okay, and so I want aspiring authors to keep that in mind as we go through this, talking about it. Be ready to expose your dirty laundry and dig off in your pockets and share or expose what's in there. As far as them being able to tell the things that are necessary for them, it's a personal thing in a way, but it also has a little bit of, consideration and thought of others, but you don't put the full impact on that because, again, that is your truth. Now, every truth doesn't have to be everything out in public. You need discernment, okay, when it comes to that. What's necessary? Discernment is required for that because that's part of your healing. Just because something is true does not mean that it needs to be put out completely publicly immediately or in full detail. What is necessary? Do I have to give graphic detail about what occurred to me? Or can I put it in a way where people can tell it and I can imply it, but I don't have to use specific names or specific places? I don't have to necessarily describe a feature of someone where everybody knows who that person was. Because again, like we said before, we're writing this to be a tool for somebody else. We're not writing it as a weapon. So what is necessary for me to tell so that it doesn't look like a weapon or vengeance or backlash to someone? Also think about, when it comes to what's necessary, think about the level of truth. When what's necessary, when I process privately what I've gone through, does me processing that mean I need to put the full thing out? Or is it that I need to sit with some of that and let some of that roll around inside of me and me deal with that? Do I have to put that out on somebody else? Is it necessary for me to publish this out to the whole entire world and then have to deal with the backlash of it? Am I ready to deal with the backlash of it? So thinking about what is necessary, you have to kind of do a self-evaluation, an honest self-evaluation of yourself first, and then of your intentions.
Well, Felicia, it's funny. You went back to necessary. I used to date a Nigerian, and he used to say that's not necessary. And I've never forget it. And it's like a running joke when I'm talking to my sister Angelia, because I'll say, Zaza da 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 said, sometimes I don't even have to say his name because she knows it. That's not necessary. And I go into my Nigerian accent, which I just can't quite pull off right this moment, but that's not necessary is the essence of what he's saying, because it's exactly what he says. And he's right. And it's amazing the things that you remember, because that's really a lesson that I got from him. That's not necessary. And the things that we think are necessary in our lives in different aspects, when you get beyond that, you realize it wasn't. But what we're talking about, it's a good question to consistently ask yourself as you're going through the process. Is it necessary for me to tell this part of my story? Yes. Is it necessary for me to tell it the way that I'm telling it? Well, I could tell it lots of different ways and still get the point across. Well, if you can tell it multiple ways and get the point across, and then your story is a tool, as you keep saying, versus something that's going to hurt someone else, let's go with the road least traveled. Let's take it. We ain't got to let it all hang out, as the song says. Well, the song didn't say it that way, but that's the way the song went, Let's don't let it all hang out.
Because you don't have to give the public your raw wounds, your big open wound. You don't have to give them that. They really probably don't want that. Heal yourself, get yourself together, and then put it out there. Don't just give them the raw wound, because they can't fix it.
No, and what you're talking about is trauma bonding there.
Yeah.
And we have to be careful that we don't trauma bond. And sometimes when that's happening, people don't realize what they're doing. So I relate to what you're saying, and I'm locked in with you. Well, I'm still trying to deal with my stuff. You still obviously trying to deal with your stuff because of the way you
Right.
feel out there. So now we come together. You think that you're doing a good job because you got these people who are following you and they're communicating
Right.
with you.
Right.
They think that the people think you're doing a good job too. But in essence, all you've done is you said, I've given my wound to these people and they not sharing their wound with me. And all we doing is wounding, 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 wounding.
Yeah, we jumped off in this ditch together. We all in
Yes,
the mud now.
thank you. And we're
Yeah.
trying to get people out the mud if they in
We're
the
trying to
mud.
get you out the mud. Right,
Oh,
right,
Felicia, I tell
right,
you, that mud,
right,
I'm
right,
telling you, that trauma bonding,
right.
and as my friend would say, that's not necessary. As I caught
Not
myself before I
necessary.
said his name, uh,
Right, that's not necessary.
that's not necessary. Those that know, they know. Um, what should writers emotionally prepare for when their story challenges family narratives or cultural expectations? Now, y'all know I'm Black. I know you didn't know it, but you know I'm Black.
Right, right.
So
For those that didn't know.
they didn't know I was Black. But it's not just, I'm brown, I'm Black, but there are other minorities and majorities, uh, ethnic cultures that are racist cultures where, and even subcultures within those cultures, because I like to make sure people understand it's not all Black people, they ain't all white people, they ain't all Asian, they ain't all nothing. There are cultures within cultures. And my culture that I belong to says, no, we don't do that.
Mhm,
This is not the way our family operates. We have
mhm.
a system, we have a standard. So how do you prepare the author, the writers to go against that and that potential backlash as they try to, get their story out?
I would say to them, first of all, go ahead initially and accept the fact that there is going to be some backlash. And that backlash is not necessarily always a reaction um, to something they may say, well, this isn't right, this isn't true, but it is a backlash to the fact that you have exposed. Okay. Be prepared for that. Number one, you may get backlash because of the exposure. They're not just overreacting as whether or not, oh, that's not true, that's not true, as much as they are of the fact that now you have made them visible and you have made your business visible. Their household has become visible. Their secrets have become visible to the world. And so that is what they respond to. So when you get that backlash, just understand they are responding or reacting to the fact that they have been exposed. And you have to prepare yourself as the writer for that emotionally. You telling your truth is going to disrupt family narratives, you may say. It's going to, of course, disrupt our cultural expectations of us keeping our business in the house, but it is also going to disrupt generational silence. And that is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it comes back to how you tell it, but that is necessary. And so I want you to also understand that doing that does not make you wrong for telling that story. It doesn't make you a betrayer of your family. It means that you are trying to break a pattern. You're trying to change things in a generational tree. You're trying to heal so that whoever comes after you will have a different and better, more positive experience. So, number one is that prepare yourself for the backlash to the exposure and the visibility of what it is that you're sharing with the whole world. Because again, it's not just family, but it's going to be strangers also that are going to be pulled into your space, pulled into your heart, pulled into your mind. You have to be prepared to open yourself all the way up and show them. But again, do so in a manner that shows discernment when you're doing that.
Fish, I think that is so important. And you made the statement that it's all in how you tell the story. and I immediately went back to a film that I just love. It's from 2003 called Basic. It stars John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson. I love Samuel L. Samuel L. Jackson, Taye Diggs, and several other folks, but it also stars Tim Daly. And it's a military movie. And if you've not watched it, guys, you should go and watch it. And particularly authors or inspiring authors, because what you see is not really what is happening. And they say it in the movie, it's all in how you tell the story. They said a couple of times, if I'm not mistaken. And then at the end, you will begin to understand it was all in how you tell the story. And so it just made me think about when you're surviving something and you're trying to put that story together, it really is about how you weave it. And there's a way to weave the story so that the family doesn't have to feel totally exposed, so that the cultural expectations, the positive ones, stay intact. So just another little resource there for you guys. Now, Felicia, I think I've heard you say at some point that writers need support before they need an audience. Now, you know,
exactly.
the cart before the horse. You know, sometimes we want to have an audience and then we want to get the support.
Exactly.
Oh, come on here now. Oh,
Exactly.
well, let me go ahead and say, come on here, Black Jesus. I think he's going to come with me now, guys. Yeah, if I start preaching, just work with me because I think he might come with me. What happens when that order is reversed? I got an audience, but I ain't got no support for them.
You can, as an author, if you don't get that emotional support before you release that story, you may not be to deal very well with the opinions of other people that are going to come. You may find yourself not mentally or emotionally strong enough to deal with the opinions that are going to come from people who read your story or hear about it. You may not be able to deal with them distancing themselves from you, because some people may do that. And that's all because, again, you didn't have that emotional support system in place before you did that. So before you publish, before you do that, get a group. It may be one person, it may be 2 or 3 people. It may be type of support where I have to make sure that I am listening to the encouragement and motivation that I need to be to go forward and do this. Maybe I need to read my word more, some scriptures that's going to give me the courage I need to step out and do this. It could even be music. It could be talking to a therapist, you know, talking to your best friend who's your cheerleader that's gonna say, you my best friend, I'm gonna be there for you no matter what. Don't care about what they say, long as you know that you did the right thing. You need that encouragement. And when you don't have it, you could pull back, or maybe re-traumatize yourself just from the responses of people who do not appreciate being put out there for everybody to see and know what's going on. And I don't mean, let me say this, I don't mean the support to come from places like social media necessary. Okay. You may put that out there and that may traumatize you even worse, or you may put it out there and you're listening to what people saying and telling you, but you don't want to go with that type of advice all the time. You want to find out, who is it that I can process this information with? Who is going to allow me to safely put it out, talk and walk me through it? Okay. Where will I go if the response is painful? Do I have a place in my home where I can go and meditate or feel safe for a while? Do I have a place in my family or someone in my family that I can go to in order to deal with the backlash, you could say, that's going to come? Because you don't want just a social media audience to be your support system, but you want one in place. So please, before you publish, talk with someone about what it is that you're going to do, because again, they can even help you again keep from writing this in a way that looks like you're trying to, get revenge at somebody, or you're doing it out of anger and just trying to expose somebody and embarrass them. You need someone that is in a better emotional state to be there for you. So please get that before you put out your work, okay? Because you may not, you need to realize whether, and be honest as to whether or not you are emotionally, spiritually, and mentally ready to deal with what's coming.
Felicia, I think you're right. When I first started in social media, I'd already written Stronger, How Overcoming Life's Adversities Can Push You Into Your Purpose, which is my memoir. And I was probably doing my morning meditations and something. And I remember, I don't exactly remember what the person said, but it was a person that was following me. And they were engaging with me. They'd make comments and things of that nature. And at some point I said something that didn't sit well with them. And I don't even know now if they still follow me, but I had to, because this is about the writer right now, I had to dig deep to see if I had the things in place like you're talking about, spiritually, emotionally, physical things that could help me to hear the feedback and not, for lack of a better word, guys, because y'all understand it, go off the deep end.
Right.
Because again, everybody, it's like when we do emails and texts and Teams chat, everybody, and I've been saying this for 2 decades, I'm getting older now, guys, but it's got to be at least 2 decades. Everybody enters that conversation from their perspective. So sometimes you're talking over each other. Sometimes you're saying the same thing, but somehow it just doesn't connect because I'm in my head, you're in your head. So if you're not prepared for that, as Felicia's talked about, you're going to be wounded perhaps by the family and the cultural expectations, and then by those who may be consuming that audience. And that's the reason why it is so important, I believe, to have, and I don't know, I can hear Joel Osteen in my brain too, like I hear T.D. Jakes. As Joel would say, you got to have yourself get yourself a good Bible.
Good Bible-based church.
You got to have yourself a good Bible base or a good support system, so that when stuff start happening to you, you don't lose it. Because you're in a vulnerable state anytime we write. But anytime we write our story, we're more vulnerable. And so not doing it backwards and making sure you got your support before your audience is critical, guys. It's really critical. And so, Felicia, how can writers tell the truth in a way, though, that honors their experience without intentionally wounding, as you keep saying? Nobody don't want your wounds, Teresa.
Nobody wants your raw wounds.
Are themselves.
Well, they have to look at writing as a responsibility. In a way, when you're getting ready to do this, you're taking on a responsibility. You are about to tell your emotional truth, but there are a lot of other people that are connected to that emotional truth. So it's your responsibility as to how you're going to present that. And you can do that without giving, again, every single detail. You may want to when you describe your characters, describe them in a different way or a softer way so that it, again, doesn't give a specific identifier. Okay. You can tell that truth without tearing somebody else down or putting them out on Front Street. You need to focus on the impact of your story rather than the accusations that you're putting out there when you're writing it. Focus on the impact. That goes back to the tool again, because the goal is not for you to expose, to shock someone, but again, a tool that can be used for transformation. Okay, you're telling your truth, but you don't need to destroy somebody else in the process. You want to bring about healing, transformation, not only for yourself, but for the reader. Okay, so you don't have to, again, put out full detail, but somebody say, I know for sure that that's George because she said he had a mole on his nose. And I know that's him. So I know that he did it. And she said that he always wore those brown tennis shoes. That's him. You don't have to do that. You can change some identifiers. Okay. And in doing so, you're not choosing between whether you want to be honest, or not. You're choosing between do I want to also have wisdom with what I do? You can be honest, but also use wisdom with it so that you don't destroy yourself and other people. Okay. You can tell your story in a way that honors the fact that you're healed and that you're protecting your peace. And I want to offer this to you also as the reader. Because in Black communities, we talking about this. Again, we go back to we think we're trying to protect the family to some point or the family name, and we haven't been taught how to protect the individual in the family. You just worry about protecting the family name and not the individual. So think about that too. When you're writing, when you choose to tell the truth, it's not about you just putting out the, as we say, the dirty laundry on people. It's about you writing in a way that says, I have decided that what I dealt with or went through is something that was hidden. And even though it was hidden, it is something that has to come out now because it being hidden is not more valuable or important than me being healed. You hear me? It being hidden is not more important than you healing, but use wisdom and discernment in the process of that healing and exposing so that you don't destroy yourself or other people.
I love that, Felicia, and as you've talked about, in the Black community, what goes on in this house stays in this house. We have to use
Exactly.
that as a protection of the family. And we
Mm-hmm.
can trace it back to slavery, so when we begin to tell our stories, sometimes folks look at it as we're being disrespectful. But at the same time, in another
It was a survival mechanism in a
a
way
survival
for us.
mechanism. But what was a survival mechanism became the new standard. And sometimes the new standard is what generational curses are. Because
Right, right.
we kept it contained. So when
Yeah.
we look at, and I'm not going to say it's generational. Well, I do mean that as a generational curse, but what I'm setting up is sometimes it's generational silence. Well, it is still generational curse because we keep it in the
Yeah,
house.
and they think it's again, they think it's protection, but it turns into dysfunction, and
That's
that wasn't the intention. Like you
mm-mm.
said, they can go all the way back to slavery. When let's just not say anything is going on because they could turn on us in a bad way, and it wasn't intended. So you meant it to be protection to some point of your family name, but it turned into dysfunction,
Mhm.
and so when it does that, you're like, what happened, or why are you that way? Why would you do that to us? But again, you try to protect your family name, but you didn't think about protecting the individual and what they had to go through, you know, in order to try to come out of that. And now they're ready to tell the story and tell the truth that could cost them something. It can cost them.
Well, Felicia, with that, then, how do you help writers navigate that tension without retreating? Because they're up against a whole lot when they're
Yeah.
trying to do this. So how do you help them navigate that?
And that goes back again too to putting that safety support system in place before you start to write. It goes back to finding a place where you feel safe. um, it goes back to understanding that even though this was what your family thought was a strategy for you all, you have to think about and realize that for you, this thing has been going on and could pass down for generation to generation. For you, it could turn into or has turned into emotional suppression, and you have a right to come from under that suppression, that emotional suppression, um, And in order to do that, you're going to have to tell your story. And even though you struggle to tell your story and tell the truth, you also have to remember that this could be something that you're going to cause to stop that has been not just personal, but historical in your family.
Yes.
Think about that. In a way, again, we go back to responsibility
Mm-hmm.
and your mission and your intention in writing this story. That can be a great help to you. This is not so much personal that I'm writing this. It is me trying to stop and prevent something that historically has been going on in our family tree. So I'm not just breaking habits, I'm breaking this legacy of this is how we protect and survive, that we do it in a manner that causes dysfunction. But I'm going to change that in my writing and telling of my story and in the way that I write and tell my story.
And that's so important, Felicia. And what I hear over and over again, guys, is the support system. And we sometimes think maybe that's the least important thing, but as the question said, do you want to have the support first? Or you want the audience first? Well, people want the audience first, but you need the support.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess my last question would be, Felicia, would be what does responsible truth telling look like in this new space? Because there's a shift happening where more people are choosing therapy, storytelling, and open conversation. So, what does responsible truth telling really look like in this space for someone who is teetering? Because they don't know that they want to wound people, but they really want to wound some people. And the
Right.
funny thing, guys, when I say that, it sounds funny the way I've said it because I want it to be a little light.
Right.
It's a very
Right.
serious
Right.
subject.
Right.
But they want to. I can't speak to other people, but there are people out there, nobody specifically. They want to tell their story, and they are, well, I'm going to use Felicia's word wound. They want to wound the people that have prevented them from being able to tell their story. They want to wound the people who didn't support them. They want to wound the people who want to still keep them quiet. And when I say wound in this sense, I want you to get it. But the way I'm going
Right.
to tell it
Right.
might not be responsible. So
Might
how
not
do
be
we
responsible.
navigate that now?
In order to be responsible in your storytelling, I would first of all advise any author to check yourself before you step out to the public eye. Check yourself. Do a self check before you step out on the stage. Do a self check before you walk out and sit at the table to sign your book. Look in the mirror and have a little conversation with yourself. Are you ready to do this? How are you feeling today? What are you thinking about? How's your day going? Are you ready to put a smile on your face and go out and tell this story? Or are you feeling a lot of anger still, and you may not present this in a way that helps or heals someone? And be honest with yourself. Are you ready to go out there and talk about this in a manner that doesn't make people look at you out of concern that, oh my gosh, she may be getting ready to have an episode right now?
Mhm.
Are you ready to show forth the progress you've made when it comes to healing through that? Responsible storytelling. Think about the people in the audience. Are you helping to heal them, or are you spewing something on them to re traumatize them and make it worse for them? Responsible storytelling, being considerate of the whole picture. We go back to discernment, even with that. That is responsible storytelling. Do I need to give every single detail about that person? We go back to that. Responsible storytelling. I can change the characteristics of this person or things that identify this person and still tell my interaction with this person, what it is they did to me or what happened to me. That is responsible, because even though this person did something to you, there may be some other people connected to that person that don't deserve that trauma or backlash They don't deserve that. It's not their fault. They weren't there. They weren't involved with it. And when you tell that, and you tell it in a way that is without a shadow of a doubt that that's who that is, you don't realize the other people that you're going to affect. It makes me almost think about when people have affairs. You're so focused in on just what pleases me, what feels good with me or to us, you never think about the backlash or the fallout that
Mhm.
can come from that. Your children didn't ask to be hurt,
Mhm.
crying, and traumatized by the arguing that's going to go on from that. They didn't ask to be traumatized by having to be separated by mama and daddy now because of what you did,
Mhm.
you know. So think about those things when you're trying to be responsible in telling your story. Consider the big picture first. Yes, you can still tell what Uncle Joe did to you, but Uncle Joe has got some really sweet kids and they have never done anything to you. But you need to release this and put it on paper and put it out there so people also can be looking for those same things in their own families, but also who have gone through it know how to get through it. But you don't necessarily have to say that it was Uncle Joe. You, as the old folks say, you let the Lord deal with that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or you go, if Uncle Joe's still around, you go have a one-on-one conversation with him because maybe that's what you need to do to heal.
Mhm.
That's being responsible. And Teresa, I can say that from my own personal experience. I can say right now, though I haven't written it in a book yet. Yeah, I know the person that sexually assaulted me, but do I want to go out and publicly say his name? No. You know why I don't? Because I know that he has children and they don't need that embarrassment that can come from that or that bullying,
Mhm.
especially now with social media. So, I can tell it in another way.
Absolutely. And Felicia, you are a master storyteller. So to my audience, she is an award-winning author, screenwriter. So she has mastered the art of telling what she survived in a way that is healing and is not wounding others. It has become a tool for thousands of people. So what this conversation makes clear is that, telling your story does not just impact you. It can shift families, it can challenge narratives and open conversations that have been closed for generations. And that kind of work requires more than just courage. It
Yes.
requires preparation and support. So if you're
Yes.
listening and you realize that writing your story is requiring more of you than you expected, you don't have to navigate this alone. Felicia works with writers through her Aspiring Writers and Writers Workshop, helping them access their story in a way that is structured and supported. And once your story is on the page, I work with
Mhm.
authors to reframe and refine and strengthen and elevate their writing so that it communicates clearly and professionally and powerfully without hurting someone else. So if you're
Right.
ready to move forward with guidance, this is the work that we do. I ask you to stay connected to this series because unpacking this topic is very near and dear to our hearts, and we want everybody to win. And so, yeah, guys, my sign off. Before you go trying to take care of someone else, let's make sure we take care of ourselves first. And if you're an aspiring writer who's trying to share what they survived, you're going to need support to do that because you got to take care of you first before you open up what you have to share with the whole world. So until next time,
Absolutely.
take care of you. Bye now.